Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist Miki Yamanaka. She grew up in Japan and moved to New York City in 2012 to study both piano and organ, and even learned under Fred Hersch. In 2015, she was one of 3 pianists selected to participate in Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead and recently earned her Master's of Music from Queens College, receiving the Sir Roland Hanna Award. She is promoting her newest album simply called Miki and has much to say. So please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
So again, thank you for taking a minute out. I really, really dig this new album, and I want to talk to you about that first and foremost. So again, thank you for taking a minute out for me.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I love this album. Talk to me about what went into this album. It sounds like you really enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. I sure did. Yeah, I was just, thinking about presenting myself, like who I am and what I like and what I enjoy the most and stuff. So I wrote a bunch of tunes and I thought about the musicians and everything. Yeah, the recording process was really fun. We just had such a great time in the recording studio. It's so much fun. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, well, and you had a great lineup with you. You had a lot of veterans, and it just sounded like a really clean, very powerful sound that went into this album.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's for sure. They know what to do in the studio. They know what it, and everything. Everything. It was so easy for me to lead a band. Like, it was not the stuff that I normally do. I work mostly as a sideman, so that was a great call to call those people to work with me.
Right on. So
yeah.
You're clearly, as you've said up front, and I hear the sirens, you're clearly in New York City. And I want to go back to the beginning of your life here in Kobe, Japan, and talk to me about, I know what I refer to Japan as, it's the land of jazz worship. I know how much the Japanese revere jazz musicians. So I want to know from someone that grew up there, how did you get into it? Who were you listening to growing up? Just talk to me about that.
Part of it is from my parents. My parents love to go to one of those jazz cafes in Japan. It used to be really huge. People go out to drink some coffee and listen to vinyls. So my parents used to do that, and then they didn't have vinyls, but they had a lot of jazz CDs. They were listening to jazz sometimes. And then they decided to put me into this jazz camp, this thing like a brass band, but that also plays jazz. So we were playing some Duke Ellington music or Count Basie, a little bit, some easy stuff when I was in elementary school or junior high school. But I never improvised or anything, but I was listening to mostly Count Basie, sometimes Buddy Rich and all those other stuff, but mostly Big Band. Then I went to high school. I started taking lessons to be able to improvise a little bit. I wasn't too serious about it for a long time. I was doing totally different major in my college life. I was doing science major. Yeah, but I loved music. I was listening to jazz for a long time. And so when I was in college, I started playing in the local jazz clubs in Japan. People really appreciate music there. So if a young musician tried to play, they always want to support. They try to help me, and I got to know a bunch of new recordings for me, which was Sonny Clark and Win Kelly, Theodore Walton, Kent Jones, and all those pianists that I didn't listen to growing up. Yeah, I was listening to jazz. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
sorry,
cool.
I can keep talking so much, but yeah.
No, you're good. I just want to know, and I've never gotten a clear answer on this, why is the Japanese population so fascinated with jazz? When did that begin, and why is that such a part of the musical culture?
Actually, I've heard so much about it, the people love and appreciate music there. But nowadays, young people, or my generation at least, don't really care about jazz that much anymore compared to the little older generation. Yeah, it's really sad. It's the scene is kind of moving to China or South Korea lately. So still people out there appreciate it. But I think it's coming from the post-war, like American
Sure.
people stay there and like, armies and all those stuff, and they played a bunch of jazz in the radio. And then they thought it's a cool thing to do, cool thing to listen to.
That's what I was thinking.
Sense. Yeah.
And I think that, the Asian cultures tend to look at the arts in a different way than the American homogenized way that we look at it. And I think there's a level of refinement that is enjoyed more in Asia and even in Europe. And I think that jazz is one of the highest levels of art form out there. So it, by osmosis, it just makes sense. So, so let's talk about your migration from Japan to the United States. You come to New York City in 2012. You study with folks like Jason Lindner, Jeb Patton, Fred Hersch. That had to be huge. So talk to me about the culture shock and what it was like to get here and start really getting into jazz.
Okay, so the big thing for me or for most of the international people is the language. I couldn't speak English, so I was in an English school, like, to study second language program and stuff. So I still have some, like, accents and stuff. But not to be able to communicate with one another was really hard for me. I'm here to learn music, but I want to be able to talk to them, I want to be able to learn and talk to them, and, like, I want them to talk to me about music. And that was really hard not to be able to communicate deeply. And also culture-wise, like, in the United States, people express themselves very well. Like, that's the right thing to do here. But in Japan, it's totally opposite. You're not supposed to tell people what you think, honestly, or, like, it could be rude to do that. So, like, you should be very careful of how you act around people, how you talk to people. You always have to think about who you are talking to or who you are playing with musically. That was, like, totally different. So, like, it took me for a while to actually adjust. But originally, I was, like, more like American way. I was kind of, like, told by Japanese people and my Japanese teachers that you cannot act like that in Japan. You cannot do that. If you want to work in a company and stuff, you can't do that. So when I moved here, I was like, I felt more comfortable doing that. So, like, it's not really culture shock, but I was like, oh, that's great. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you did actually start playing gigs in New York City, and you played with, a lot of big names like Steve Nelson, Seamus Blake, and Victor Lewis, and Antonio Hart, what was it like when you finally realized that you had made it all the way to America, the most happening jazz place on the planet, and you're playing? What was that like?
It's kind of funny to say, but I just started to realize how amazing New York is. I didn't know much about jazz when I came here, and I started playing with Philip Harper, a great trumpet player who used to work with Art Blakey. That was like one of my first gigs in New York, and when I started working with him, I just didn't realize how amazing to get to play with a musician like him. I just didn't realize, because I just got the gig, playing at this, like, one of my favorite places to play at small jazz club, and just, like, I feel just so at home, and, like, I was just enjoying it. And I didn't know how amazing it was, and it is. Then that fact that I work with Philip started, like, for me to work with other people like Steve Nelson and, like, Russell Malone and those people, and Antonio Hart, like, those people who actually had me on their gigs. And then I realized it's because New York is so amazing, and New York people are always cautious about who's playing, who's hanging out, who's growing, like, who's getting better, and who's the youngins, and they're always cautious about, what's happening, what's coming up. So if I didn't do that in New York, I wouldn't be able to work with so many amazing musicians. So yeah, like, it's just recently that I just, realized how amazing New York is.
So that's one level of education, is playing live with people. But another part of that is getting your education. You got your master's from Queens College. And what have you learned in a classroom that's helped you so much as a musician?
Interesting. I think to be able to communicate with any kinds of musicians, like level-wise, for example, like if you go to a school, it's not going to be like everybody's at the level that you want to like learn from and stuff. Like there were a lot of amazing musicians at school, and the teachers were amazing for sure. But like there were some musicians that aren't really high level yet, but they want to be. And then like all the ensemble classes and stuff. In a classroom, we have to be able to accommodate each other. Like what do you want to work on and what do we want to achieve until the end of the semester. So I wouldn't say I was the top level, but I was like trying to make all of us like together to get better and to be able to work one another and stuff. That was really hard, but it was challenging and it was really fun. And getting to know all those international students, I am international and there were so many more international students. So it was really diverse and it was really fun.
At this point, you've been in New York City for, 6+ years. You have a new solo album coming out. You've played, on side projects. You've been very fluid and busy. Are you happy with your career? So that's one part of it. Are you happy? And where do you see yourself going?
I should be happy, but I want more. That's how I honestly feel like. But to be able to put together like an official record was something I should be happy about, then I'm actually proud and happy about. So, and then in the future, I want to be able to tour in the world. I would like to see different parts of the world through music. So if I get to do that, that would be great. But we'll see. I'm not like in the rushing either. I'm like try to get better, try to get to know more people, try to get to work with more people, and then if eventually that happens, that's great. But I'm not rushing yet.
Who have you seen live on a jazz stage that's really made a profound impact on you? Who have you seen perform live?
Well, Steve Nelson is the best one for me, the most. That's why I asked him to play on my record. It was pretty simple. He moved me the biggest time. But a piano player wise, I love Fred Hersch. His playing is very unique to me. His voicings and his way of telling the story on the piano is very unique. And also, I love Larry Goldings, who wrote the liner notes for my record. He's been a big influence for me too. Actually, Fred and Larry are actually related. They just found out a couple years ago or something. But they both are really big influence. I've seen both of them perform. Larry plays organ mostly, but he did this duo concert at Mezzaro with Peter Bernstein, and that was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. And also, I have to mention Rini Rosnes is one of my biggest influences as well. She is a woman and thriving as a musician still, and she has built the career as a sideman and also as a leader that I also want to be like that, I don't want to be just a leader. I would like to be a sideman as well because I love playing people's music.
Yeah. Why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz? That's funny. I don't know, this music excites me the most. I love food and I love cars and I love all other stuff, but when I listen to jazz, I immediately start dancing, and I just can't stop thinking about how amazing the musicians I'm listening to, and it just excites me the most. I don't know. I don't have specific answers.
That's pretty specific. Absolutely. So I got my final question here, and I want to know this. Everyone has a perception of you. They see you in a certain light. Your family, your friends, your fans. but you are in control of you. Who do you think you are?
Okay. I am a person that loves a lot of stuff, loves people, and wants to be better at herself. I'm talking like a third person. I would like to get better all the time. I would love to love people and music and anything else that I encounter. I'm really open-minded, I think, at least I think, and I would love to learn about different stuff or some difficulties that people have. And I love pain. And if people don't have pain, I think we don't actually enjoy the happiness and all those stuff. So, like, I'm like that, I think. That's who I am. You know, I'm a little bit nuts. Sometimes I drink too much and I go nuts and stuff, but that's part of me. Like that, love to enjoy life. If that's
cool.
The answer, yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I think so. And I think that's a great way to wrap everything up. Miki, thank you for taking your time out to talk about the newest album and your life and music. And good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, and it was so much fun talking with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Japan, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Miki for her time, stories, and music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.